Hi, I'm Max Orr. This is my deeper reflection activity on what technical writing is after doing the Markle and the Weiss readings. So I started with what ideas I had in the very first introductory video that were confirmed in the readings. So the first is that I suggested that technical writing is practical and designed to meet a specific end. So designed to meet some sort of end. I suggested that instruction manuals, brochures, that sort of thing would be good examples of technical writing. And I think the reading largely supported those definitions. I also suggested that technical writing is designed to meet the needs of a specific audience, which is pretty clearly emphasized in the Markle text to make sure that you're analyzing the needs of your particular audience. And it's in the Weiss PowerPoint too. So the heart of what I had in mind in my initial definition is here in Markle when they write, every technical document has 6 major characteristics. It addresses particular readers, helps readers solve problems. Those 2 things right there are what I had in mind. This part underlined in blue was sort of new. I hadn't really thought about it. The technical writing also reflects an organization's cultures and goals and is produced collaboratively. That had not occurred to me, nor that the design needed to quite possibly use words and graphics together. Of course, a good technical document would be produced collaboratively because there would need to be some sort of cooperation between people who are maybe designers or engineers or working with a product or organization and the writers who are distributing, creating this document to be distributed to the end user. So in hindsight, that makes perfect sense. And the same is true of visuals. If you're trying to teach somebody how to carry out a process or give them the tools they need to use a product, you would certainly need visuals. An example of these things coming up in a text in my house is this bodybuilding textbook by Frederick Hatfield. It's called Bodybuilding, a Scientific Approach. I had it sitting on my desk and I've been using it for my own weightlifting, so I thought this is appropriate. So, for example, this page right here has instructions on how to do front dumbbell raises, and you'll see that it uses both photographs of a model carrying out this exercise and anatomical stretches here showing you which muscles ought to be activated, and finally, text that explains how the exercise should be performed. So obviously the author and the publisher here had to collaborate with models or athletes and photographers and anatomical artists or people who can do sketches. So truly a group effort. Also, the images are going to be super useful for the end user who's trying to carry out the act of completing these exercises at the gym or in their own home safely. And this sort of reminded me of in the Markle reading, the importance, the ethical concerns of having honest, correct, accurate information, because you certainly would not want a user to get hurt or damage a product because your writing was inaccurate or dishonest. And I think that is particularly true in anything that's exercise related. The rotator cuff, for example, is pretty fragile. You would want pretty good directions. This is another page from that same text that has this image from an electron micrograph of a cardiac cell, a muscle cell here. And I wanted to point out in the caption, it says, this photo was courtesy of the University of Wisconsin Biodynamics Laboratory, Physical Education Department. So a further instance of collaboration in the building of this technical document. Again, it's a good example of graphics complementing the text so that the reader can understand the more specific and scientific explanation of how a muscle cell is built and how energy is used within the cell, and then apply that to their own training. And then lastly, I wanted to pull this out of the Markle text. In my early video, I defined good writing as writing that it completes its goal concisely, whether it's technical writing or creative writing. And I think the Markle text largely supports that definition. I figured that things like accuracy, clarity, and correctness were given, but the Markle text really underscored issues, like I said before, of safety and integrity when it comes to correctness, and those had not occurred to me. So here in their 8 measures of excellence, we have honesty, clarity, accuracy, comprehensiveness, accessibility, conciseness, professional appearance, and correctness. So some of that I felt like was bound up in my definition, and some of it was certainly missing. Markle adds honesty and professional appearance, for example. One thing I also wanted to just highlight from the Markle text that I really liked was this emphasis on the writing process as being non-recursive. I'm sorry, as being recursive and non-linear, which matches really well with how I frame writing in my classroom. So I encourage students to think about their own writing processes as recursive and non-linear, and to be comfortable with the back and forth nature of drafting and brainstorming and revising over and over again. So I underlined the part here in red. At any step, you might double back to do more planning, drafting, or revising. Even when you think you're almost done, you might think of something that would improve the planning. So that really aligns well with how I try to frame writing as well. I also wanted to highlight this part about the Weiss reading. So Weiss differentiated between vertical and horizontal organization in technical documents and really seemed to favor vertical organization, where it's organized by tasks, like getting started guides, and includes examples. It has a table of contents with familiar language that's really easy to navigate and make the document more accessible and quicker to use for the end user. I like this because, just sort of intuitively from a lifetime of using technical documents, I'm familiar with this kind of organization, but I never had the language for it. Vertical organization as opposed to horizontal organization, where you already have to know what you're looking for. And lastly here, I pulled out 3 kinds of technical writing I do in my profession, which is teaching high school English and coaching high school wrestling. The first is lesson plans. Lesson plans are written collaboratively between me and my co-teacher and my intervention specialist. They're designed for a specific audience, which would be other teachers or administrators. They're very practical, designed to help the end user apply them in the classroom. And the need for correctness in terms of aligning the standards and meeting students' IEP needs is quite important. I pulled up an example here of a lesson plan on analyzing theme in a text, and you'll see that it's got this sort of specific information that assumes the audience is aware with Common Core State standards and this sort of coded language. And then it has a lot of deeply practical and specific information that's organized by the order of its relevance. So, for example, the assessments here, and the standards come before the instructions in a way that the audience would be familiar with. And the professionalism here and the accessibility are, of course, important, since it's a representation of you as a professional. The second type of writing I have on here are assignment sheets. So these are written for students. They need to be accessible for students. They are, again, designed collaboratively between me and my co-teacher. And they need to make use of visuals. So here, for example, is an assignment sheet for the Great Gatsby essay at the end of my Gatsby unit. And it's got use of visuals that are iconic from the text for students. It has the standards up front because this is the most important thing for their grade. And then the guidelines and the options are down here with links to other material that we've done in class together that might be useful for them, but doesn't get in the way if they don't need it. So it's nice and concise. It is a single page. And lastly, I'm running out of time here, but lastly, I have practice schedules. So, I mentioned that I coach wrestling. These are designed between members of the coaching staff. They need to be accessible and understandable for students and family. And they're organized vertically by information in them that you might need. So here, for example, is a communication to parents about a fundraising opportunity the district is doing. And then down here is the practice schedule with the specific times listed in it so that parents can do what they need to for transportation and whatnot, and they know what to expect on future team events here. One fourth one here, just as a bonus, since I've got like 50 seconds left, is this coaching document that has details for how to teach specific moves and techniques during practice. It's very bare bones because the audience are other members of that specific coaching staff. And so it really works as a guide just to sort of unite the language that we're all using and to be a bare bones blueprint for, expectations and how to teach like a head inside single. So anyway, there are 3 or 4 kinds of technical documents I create as a teacher and as a coach that I really think align well with the Markle and the Weiss reading.